Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for October 18th to October 24th of 2015. And on October 18th, we have the sun. You can see it denoted right here by this black circle with the dot in it. It's in Libra. It's also in the 32nd hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we've got the chop mark for the 37. Numbered from bottom to top, the 37 goes yin, yang, 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 yin, yin. And then the 32nd hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here we've got the 32nd gate of continuation, duration. The only thing that endures is change. It's located in the splenic center in a tribal energy path in the ego circuit called the Channel of Transformation, a design of being driven that connects to the 54th gate of ambition, the Marian maiden, interaction in its mundane social context with also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person. I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings, and we've got the following activated gates on October 18th. We have the sun in the 32 with the earth in the 42. The north node is in the 46 with the south node in the 25. Mercury is in the 18th gate. We've got Venus in the 40th gate. Mars and Jupiter are both in the 64th gate, which we need to get right back up there. We also have Saturn is in the 34th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 51st gate. Neptune retrograde in the 37th, and Pluto is in the 38th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these channels, these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report, and whatever the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And we've got two channel definitions due to the transit field. First of all, we've got this long-term transit that's with us for 4.5 months. So it began quite a while ago. It's going to be with us until November 29th. This is the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. It's an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if you're faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're seeing, and will likely to continue to see, people becoming more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zone, which is shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time period, recognize it's a conditioning force that will eventually move on. But this could seem like folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic with the defined ego center. We've got folks who maybe don't have a defined ego center, may feel as if they have something to prove or want to improve themselves or make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. The defined G center could influence folks without to wonder where they're headed, maybe even obsess about it, or obsessing about where they might find love. This is also individual circuitry. So the definition brings melancholy that's best used in creative activities. And then we've got Venus in the 40th gate, and we have Neptune in the 37, which means that we have the channel of community until October 21st. And this definition brings the sense where people wonder where they belong in the scheme of things, and try to live that out. So this is a time of being of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community, where fairness becomes very important. under the influence of the channel of community. Balance is also important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community on a mystical level, where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. Again, the defined ego center could bring that energy of wanting to improve or prove or make commitments or promises and things of that nature. The defined solar plexus influences folks without to feel that unfamiliar wave of emotions, which perhaps could lead to acting confrontational. We're going to be looking at the sun's ravaging line values daily, because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, The Lines of the Day, when he was talking about these shifts, daily shifts in line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Now, obviously, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, what I find fascinating is really just watching how the program is affecting others in my environment. That might be a good way to work with it as well for you. On October 18th, it begins with the sun in the fourth line of the 32nd hexagram. This is described as right is might, exalted even in times of change. Certain underlying principles endure. The instinct to maintain one's principles in times of change. Detrimented inner strength and endurance as long as it's not threatened from the outside. The instinct to maintain one's principles as long as one's security is not threatened. Fourth line energy, is really looking outside. It's in that upper trigram, with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, things of that nature. But it basically, at 59 minutes after midnight on the 18th, the sun then moves into the fifth line. So at 12:59 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the sun is in the fifth line of the 32nd hexagram, where it's described as flexibility, easy adaptation to circumstances, exalted, where superficiality is a valuable tool that, while masking inner limits, permits adaptation and to prevailing conditions. An instinct for adaptation in times of change, detrimented the urge to express oneself in direct and often violent rejection of conformity, the potential of the instinct to reject adaptation and conformity in times of change. Fifth line days, as I said before, this is really about projection. This is the line of the heretic. So we've got suspicion and universalization, paranoia, and seduction being themes of the day. But like I said, projection is always positive, then negative. Positive, they could do it, they're the perfect person for it. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, doesn't want to do it, for whatever reason, they don't meet the expectation, that's when the projection turns negative. That's when the person is tied to a stake and burned. Basically, that's, to me, the important thing to understand about a fifth line energetic is that we have that projection field. But then later on the 18th, the sun then moves up into the sixth line, role model line of the 32nd hexagram. This happens, this shift is at 11:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so just 22 minutes before midnight. On the 18th, the sun in the 32nd hexagram sixth line is tranquility, the need to calmly face impermanence. Exalted, an underlying acceptance of change that may or may not lead to tranquility. The instinctive awareness to accept change and transformation, detrimented impermanence as proof of meaninglessness and its attendant manifestations of depression, delusion, and an extreme self-destruction. The fear engendered when change is experienced as impermanence, the potential for depression. Sixth line days, you're on the roof of the hexagram. If we're thinking about being on the roof of a building, we tend to be looking beyond the building. What's going on in the neighborhood? What's down the road? What's on the horizon? Things of that. nature. And Ross said that 6-line days are about not getting stuck with your head in the clouds because you end up with something banging into your shins. It's a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like a 3rd-line day, there could be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming, things of that nature. On the 19th, the sun then moves out of the 32nd hexagram and into the 50. And then the Earth shifts from the 42 to the 3. So we have the Earth in the 3rd hexagram in the gate of ordering, difficulty at the beginning. The fundamental change of initiation is to transcend confusion and establish order. And this shift happens at 10:17 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with the sun in the 50th gate of values, the cauldron, the value of historical continuity, whose traditional values serve and enrich the present and the future. The sun in the 1st line of the 50 is the immigrant, humbleness of origin that benefits rather than restricts destiny exalted, the desire to be effective and successful that builds on the most fundamental strengths while it refines its nature. The awareness that the growth and refinement of values will benefit destiny, detriment and a dissatisfaction with or embarrassment with origins that makes an obsession of refinement, a dissatisfaction with original values and that demand refinement. And we're in a new hexagram, 1st, 2nd, 3rd lines, again, lower trigram. Those are days when people are more looking inward, absorbed in their own process, with the theme of the 1st line, the investigator line, is that there's a fear and anxiety that needs to be investigated. So, the energy is for studying, not acting, looking into things, not jumping, deal with things that you don't understand, can't make sense of, or don't know, with that 1st line energetic. On the 20th, the sun then moves into the 2nd line. So leaving the investigator line, moving into the hermit line of the 50th hexagram at 8:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun is exalted in the 2nd line of the 50 and described as determination, exalted, the strength of purpose that can enjoy overcoming adversity to achieve its goals, the strength derived from maintaining one's values in the face of opposition of conditioning. 2nd line days, again, people are waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called for their natural talents in the 2nd line. Again, people can be stuck in their own trip in that lower trigram. So it's not a great day to have a party or a social event because people really want to stay home under the influence of the hermit. Also on the 20th, Mercury moves from the 18 and into the 48. Mercury in mythology was the messenger of the gods. So this is about expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music, according to Ra. And what do you communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated with Mercury in the 48th hexagram? Well, it's the depth that comes from understanding the patterns that resulted from the judgment process when Mercury was in the 18th hexagram. This is the gate of the well, depth, the necessary and qualitative foundation that is a prerequisite to establish the common good. And in the 1st line of the 48, this is insignificance and an instinctive recognition of what is practical and deserves attention, a taste for recognizing what is practical and deserves attention, detriment and ego tendency to apply energy to trivial considerations, a taste for trivia. The 21st, the sun then moves into the 3rd line of the 50th hexagram. So leaving the hermit, moving into the martyr line of the 50. at 7:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 50th hexagram third line is adaptability, exalted. When unable to make it alone, will naturally align itself with nurturing and protective forces. The awareness that to maintain one's values and principles, the supports of others is necessary. Detrimented, a resentment when its natural mental gifts are ignored and is forced to curry favor in order to survive. Discomfort with the awareness that one cannot stand alone by one's principles. Third line days, a martyr, we're talking trial and error process, bonds made and broken, system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us under that third line energy, so be careful on the roads, be careful of swinging doors, swinging elbows, and things in your environment. We might have bonds made and broken. Could be that we feel like things are on trial and that errors occur. It's a good material day, could be a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you have to be careful because things can go wrong. Ultimately, those things may lead to discovery. Also on the 21st, Venus moves out of the 40th gate in hexagram and up to join Mars and Jupiter up here in the 64th gate. In human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood, according to Ra. It brings morality, values, natural law in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us and what disturbs you on a moral level. Your design and personality, Venuses, tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with in life, and that if you do not act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution, according to Ra. In the 64th, Venus is in the gate of confusion. Before completion, transition like birth requires a determined strength for the passage through. Venus is exalted in the first line of the 64, which you see represented as an upward pointing triangle, but it's also detrimented due to Mars also being in the 64, which is a downward pointing triangle. So when you see Venus in the 64-1 at this point, it's going to look like a six-pointed star as those two triangles are overlaid. And this is the line of conditions, exalted in penetrating to the center, the understanding that instills the necessary harmony to survive disorder. Amongst the confusion, the difficulty in finding the point, detrimented, a powerful temptation when transition is in sight to hasty actions, the urge to act when you think you have made sense of confusion. And then on the 22nd, the sun then moves up into the fourth line, so leaving the lower trigram into the upper trigram, into the line of the opportunist of the 50th hexagram at 6:10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the fourth line of the 50th hexagram is described as corruption, a lack of enriching values. Exalted, the malefic gift of turning inferior values into material success, the capacity to maintain one's strength despite inferior values. Detrimented with such energy and no traditional values, the worst can be expected. The potential disregard of values that may lead to corruption or the breakdown of the defense system. Fourth line days, we're moving from the lower trigram to the upper trigram, so we change from an inward perspective to now more looking outward, from personal process to more transpersonal, with the fourth line themes of friendship, companionship, networking. Fourth line days are great for social interactions. We also have on the 22nd, Mars moving out of the 64 and leaving behind Venus and Jupiter and moving into the 47, which then brings a channel definition, which I think is fairly significant because we also have a defined head center, and only 29% of folks have a defined head center. So this is going to influence a lot of people. Hopefully everybody stays right there. That would be good. All right, so let's first of all talk about Mars. Mars is in the gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. Mars is in the first line of the 47 of taking stock, exalted, the ability in times of hardship to concentrating on eradicating the negative factors that have led to oppression, realizing that negative thoughts have to be eradicated, detrimented the delusion of seeing oppression as an exclusively external phenomenon with disastrous results, the sense that the world is against you. And Ross spoke of Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. Mars represents the warrior archetype in mythology, and that by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality of Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And with Jupiter and Venus in the 64 and Mars in the 47, this brings us the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity until November 1st. The energy of this channel is about creating something new out of something old. It's about abstract thought being brought into the collective consciousness through the arts, philosophy, history, and culture. This is a wonderful energy for telling stories about our experiences that inspire others. But it can bring confusion when it's used to resolve our own issues. Defined head center could influence folks without to think about things that don't matter. And then the defined Ajna center could influence folks without to be really certain of something that ultimately they will figure out they're not certain of. On the 23rd, the sun then moves up into the 5th line of the 50th hexagram at 4:47 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 55 is described as consistency. When continuity has brought success, it should not be tampered with. Exalted the discipline and natural conservatism to avoid unnecessary change. The conservative awareness that basic principles should not be abandoned casually. Detriment a perverse reaction to rebel against the methodology of one's very success, when effectively stimulating the drive to rebel against basic principles. 5th line days, again, we're talking about the heretic, we're talking about projection going from positive to negative. They could do it. They're the perfect person from it being positive. The person doesn't do it, doesn't want to do it, can't do it for whatever reason. They don't meet the expectation. Projection turns negative. Person gets punished. The heretic is tied to the stake, and the bonfire is made around it. So, this is a day of suspicion, but also universalization, where something is spread like a virus. There's also paranoia associated with the 5th line day. As I said before, if you're being projected onto and they are out to get you because you're not meeting that expectation, then it really isn't paranoia. Seduction also being a theme of the 5th line energy. And then on the 24th, the sun then moves into the 6th line of the 50th hexagram at 3:23 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 6th line of the 50 is leadership, exalted. The gift in a position of power to maintain harmony even in severity, the strength to maintain one's values with vigor and continue to have harmonic relationships with others, detriment and inherent moodiness that in a position of power may at times alienate or offend and affect overall efficiency, the strength to maintain one's values but at the expense of harmonic relationships. 6th line days, we're up on the roof of the hexagram. I like to think of being on the roof of a building. We're not looking at the building. We're looking at what's going on in the neighborhood, what's down the road, what's on the horizon. And Ra talked about 6 line days of not getting your head stuck in the clouds, because you can end up with something banging into your kneecaps, where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us, where folks may be looking up beyond their immediate environment, and like 3rd line days, not seeing certain dangers like a car coming or a bill coming, things of that nature. Also on the 24th, Mercury then moves out of the 48 and into the 57. So Mercury in the 57th gate then connects up with Saturn in the 34, bringing another channel definition. With the channel of power that we've been seeing a lot lately. And so let's talk about Mercury. Well, we already talked about Mercury being about communication. You know, what might we hear communicated with Mercury in the 57? You know, we might hear people intuitive insight that can penetrate into the core of the now. This is the gate of intuitive insight, the gentle, the extraordinary power of clarity. And in the first line of the 57, this is confusion, exalted, the gift of penetrating to the inner meaning that ensures timely action, the possibility of intuition penetrating to the inner meaning, detrimented where feelings are no substitute for clarity and can lead to indecision, the possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition. And Mercury in the 57, and we've got Saturn in the 34th gate. So we've got the channel of power, which is the design of an archetype that will be with us until October 27th. This channel brings an attunement to the body to have an acute early warning system to anything in the immediate environment, especially, you know, folks that have that defined. But, you know, this may increase our intuitive awareness and even, you know, that unfamiliar to us non-generators to feel, you know, an sacral response. Basically, this may affect folks to feel more on guard, alert to the dangers of the moment. This is an animal instinct to engage in battle or jump out of the way with a split-second response. So, you know, there might not even be, and folks that have this, that sacral response is often so fast that they don't even hear it; they just react. With that splenic connection. So this could, you know, may have people more in tune to what's being said from the tone of voice of the speaker rather than the words spoken. Sometimes this is experienced as a coolness by others. It's just also another individual channel that represents survival of the archetype, you know, represented by the archetype of what it is to be truly human. The splenic center brings with it intuition and well-being. Ra warned that non-splenic folks may feel the need to let go of something that is good for them during a transit to finding the splenic center. The sacral definition could affect non-generators in feeling busy and having the endurance to work. They also may think they know when enough is enough, which could lead to the premature or abrupt end to something that really needs more time. So no matter what the energies are that are conditioning you during the week, remember this is an experience about being a passenger, riding in a vehicle that's being driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what the dramas that beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on the world stage. Just take some time to observe your play, watch your movie, as well as act your part by remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for October 25th. Of 2015 should be available on the 24th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, blog, or YouTube, and I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. If you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. As always, always, I am blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best. Look forward to connecting again.